What if everything you believe about money is a lie? What if the dollars in your wallet aren't wealth, but debt? What if your mortgage, your savings, even your job, are just gears in a system designed not to set you free, but to keep you running? In this series, we expose the truth no one told you about the money game, how belief fuels currency, how control is hidden behind legal tender, and how the middle class became the engine of someone else's empire. Today, we start with a simple, shocking truth. Money is just paper. Yes, that $20 bill in your wallet. It's not backed by gold. It's not valuable on its own. It's just a symbol. A belief. A shared agreement between you, me, the grocery store, your landlord, and the entire global economy. And it only works because we all keep believing in it, together. Let's get real for a moment. If you found a US dollar bill lying on the street in a world where nobody accepted it, it would be just as useful as a napkin. That's how fragile the system is. And yet, at the same time, that's how powerful belief can be. When we say money, we're really talking about collective faith. You get paid in dollars because you believe that someone else will accept those dollars. Your boss gives you a paycheck not because it contains value itself, but because it represents potential: groceries, rent, gas, a new iPhone, a trip to Mexico. This trust isn't just personal, it's institutional. It's psychological. It's deeply cultural. Most people don't question it. You're raised believing money is real. You're taught to save it, earn it, chase it, build your life around it. But what is it, really? Think of it this way: if tomorrow, everyone on Earth stopped accepting US dollars, the global economy would crash, not because we ran out of money, but because we ran out of belief. This is the heart of what economists call fiat currency. The word fiat literally means, let it be done. As in, this has value, because we say so. Because a government, a bank, a group of people collectively agree that it does. There's no gold in the vault anymore. No silver backing your bills. Just psychology, policy, and power. So when you hold money, you're not holding value, you're holding a promise. A promise that someone else will honor that value when you trade it in. And in that sense, money is more like language than substance. It's communication. It says, I believe this has worth, and I trust you will, too. Now, don't get me wrong, belief is powerful. It built religions, civilizations, empires. And it's the reason the modern economy exists. But if belief can be built, it can also be broken. And the moment that faith cracks, that's when things collapse. History gives us plenty of reminders. From hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, to the Weimar Republic in Germany, to the fall of Venezuela's economy, when the belief in money fails, people turn to bartering, gold, crypto, even cigarettes. Anything but the worthless bills they used to trust. We are living inside a mass illusion that works incredibly well, until it doesn't. And here's the kicker: the illusion isn't dangerous because it's fake. It's dangerous because it feels so real. It's printed, taxed, traded, saved, and worshipped. It governs your choices. Your education. Your home. Your health. Even your relationships. But understanding the illusion is the first step to freeing yourself from it. Because once you realize money isn't value, just belief, you can start asking better questions. Like, who controls the belief? Who benefits from the system? What happens if that belief changes? You can't see these answers if you're too busy chasing dollars without ever stopping to ask what they really are. Money isn't magic. It's a man-made system. And every system can be redesigned, if you understand it well enough. So let's keep going. In the next episode, we'll travel back to a defining moment in monetary history, 1971. When President Richard Nixon removed the US dollar from the gold standard and changed money forever. What used to be gold became faith. What used to be tied to tangible value became a tool of policy, control, and manipulation. But more on that next time. For now, remember this: money only works because we agree it works. And the moment enough people stop agreeing, the money stops working. We step into the moment that turned belief into the foundation of the global economy, August 15, 1971. It was a Sunday night. President Richard Nixon appeared on national television with what seemed like a simple economic update. But what he announced would silently rewrite the rules of the world economy. His exact words were, "I have directed Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold." It sounded harmless, temporarily suspend. But in truth, that temporary change became permanent. The US dollar would never again be tied to gold. And with that one decision, the last bridge between money and tangible value collapsed. Let's unpack what that really meant. For most of modern history, money wasn't just paper, it was backed by something real. Gold. Every dollar represented a fixed amount of gold stored in the US Treasury. It kept the system honest. If the government printed too much money, they needed more gold to back it. And if people lost faith in the dollar, they could redeem it for actual gold. But under Nixon, that guarantee disappeared. The dollar became what economists call a fiat currency, value by decree. The government said, "This has value," and that was that. No more gold. No more redemption. Just trust. Why did Nixon do it? Because the US was bleeding gold. The Vietnam War was expensive. Social programs were growing. Other countries, especially France, were starting to exchange their dollars for gold, draining America's reserves. If this continued, the US would run out of gold and face collapse. So Nixon took the off-ramp. He closed the gold window. The dollar would float freely. And from that day forward, the US government could print as much money as it wanted, without needing a single ounce of gold to back it up. That moment gave birth to the modern monetary system. On the surface, not much changed. People still got paid in dollars. Prices still moved. Banks kept operating. But under the surface, the entire nature of money had shifted. It went from being grounded in substance, to being propped up by belief, policy, and control. And with that shift came new power, and new risks. When money is tied to gold, the government is limited. They can't just print their way out of problems. But once that anchor is removed, money becomes elastic, inflatable, manipulable. Need to fund a war. Print money. Need to bail out banks. Print money. Need to juice the economy before an election. Lower interest rates and stimulate spending. And that's exactly what happened. Over the next 5 decades, the US would print trillions of dollars, cut and raise interest rates, inject liquidity into markets, and use money as a tool to steer the economy like a ship. But when you print more money, something else happens: inflation. As more dollars enter the system, each dollar becomes worth less. Prices rise. The cost of living increases. But wages? They often don't keep up. This silent tax, this erosion of purchasing power, hits the working class the hardest. And that's the irony. The gold standard was removed to protect the economy. But over time, the new system made it easier for the rich to multiply their wealth, while the poor and middle class struggled to keep up. Now here's the punchline. Money became cheaper to create, but more expensive to live with. The very act of untying money from gold made money more volatile, more manipulated, more vulnerable to politics and market psychology. And once the US dollar became a fiat currency, the rest of the world followed. Today, almost every currency on Earth is fiat. None of them are backed by real assets. Just laws. Just belief. This is the water we're swimming in. And most of us don't even realize we're wet. You might be wondering, why does this matter? Isn't the system working? Well, it's working for some. But it's also fragile. Because belief systems can be shaken. They can collapse. And when the foundation of your economy is belief, not substance, one crisis of confidence is all it takes to bring the house down. 2008 was one such moment. So was 2020. And more may come. The gold standard was not perfect. It had flaws. It was rigid. It limited government action in times of crisis. But it also provided discipline, accountability, trust in scarcity. Today, we live in a world where money can be created by the keystroke of a central banker and destroyed just as quickly by a market panic. So what can you do with this knowledge? You can stop seeing money as an absolute. You can start understanding it as a tool, one that's shaped by trust, by power, and by who gets to print it. And most of all, you can prepare. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that every financial system eventually faces its reckoning. Now we take a deeper dive into the uncomfortable truth most people never question. Money is debt. Yes, you heard that right. Every dollar you've ever touched, saved, spent, or earned was born out of debt. Not value. Not production. Not gold. Debt. Let's walk through this. How is money actually created? Contrary to popular belief, the government doesn't just print money and drop it into the economy like monopoly cash. In the US, the Federal Reserve, America's central bank, creates new money by issuing debt. It lends money to commercial banks. Those banks, in turn, lend it to people like you and me. Or to businesses. Or to the government itself. This is called the fractional reserve banking system. Here's how it works. 1. The Fed lends money to banks. 2. Those banks lend out most of it, keeping only a fraction on reserve. 3. The money lent out gets deposited again, and banks lend out most of that too. 4. This cycle repeats, multiplying the original money supply. Every step in that process creates more debt. In this system, money does not enter the economy without someone going into debt first. So when you hold a dollar bill, you're holding a claim on someone else's obligation. A government bond. A mortgage. A credit card loan. Even your savings account is just a digital IOU from the bank. That's the modern miracle of money. It's not wealth, it's a web of promises. The total US money supply is only as strong as people's willingness and ability to repay those debts. Think about that. The value of your money depends not on how much gold is in a vault, but on whether someone else, somewhere, is paying their bills. Let's take an example. You walk into a bank and get approved for a mortgage. The bank doesn't give you money from its vault. It creates the money. Literally. With a few keystrokes, it increases the balance in your account, and poof, that's new money. But it didn't come from nowhere. It came from your promise to pay it back, with interest. And that's the catch. Every dollar created has a cost, interest. So for the system to keep working, more and more people must keep borrowing. It's like a treadmill that can't stop. If people stop borrowing, the money stops flowing. And when debt payments are missed or defaulted on, The whole machine trembles. Here's a hard truth. If all debts were paid off today, the money supply would shrink. If nobody took out new loans, the economy would stall. If everyone saved at the same time, spending would collapse. It's a paradox. The system requires debt to function, but that same debt threatens the system if it becomes too large or too toxic. This is why economists and central banks monitor things like interest rates, credit markets, and consumer debt so closely. It's not just about helping you buy a home or a car, it's about keeping the economic engine alive. And who benefits most from this debt-fueled engine? Hint: it's not the average American. It's the banks that collect interest. The corporations that issue bonds. The investors who profit from lending. The government that uses your tax dollars to pay its own growing debt. In 2024, the U.S. national debt passed $34 trillion. That's not a typo. And it's still growing. Fast. Every second, the government borrows more money just to pay for what it already promised: Social Security, defense, healthcare, interest on older debts. It's a cycle that feeds itself, and we're all stuck in it. You might ask, why not just print money and cancel the debt? Because in this system, debt is money. To erase it would be to erase the very structure the economy is built on. That's why bailouts happen. That's why interest rates are lowered during recessions. That's why central banks panic when borrowing slows down. Because when debt dies, so does money. But what does that mean for the average person? It means you're not just working for dollars. You're working to service someone else's promise. You're participating in a game where debt equals liquidity, and liquidity equals survival. It also means that wealth is an illusion for many. You may have $10,000 in your bank account, but if it's just the result of someone else's borrowed money, it's not real wealth, it's just a placeholder. A temporary position in the debt cycle. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. Because once you understand the game, you can stop being a pawn and start thinking like a player. We uncovered a fundamental truth: every dollar is born from debt. And that debt is what keeps the entire economic machine alive. Now comes the next big question. If money is debt, can you choose to step outside of that system? Can you live without it? Can you opt out? Let's not sugarcoat it. No, not really. You can't pay your taxes in gold. You can't buy a house in Bitcoin, not without converting it back to US dollars first. And you certainly can't print your own currency without breaking federal law. Try handing a grocery store clerk a bar of silver for a gallon of milk. They'll call the manager. Try telling your landlord you'll be paying rent in Ethereum. Unless they're a crypto enthusiast, you'll be evicted in 30 days. Even if people are willing to accept alternative forms of payment, the law isn't. And that's the point. The US dollar is what's known as legal tender, meaning it's the only currency recognized by law to settle debts and financial obligations. It's baked into everything. Mortgages, tax payments, court settlements, employment contracts, bank transactions. It's not just dominant, it's enforced. Now, don't get me wrong. There are digital alternatives. Cryptocurrency, gold, barter economies. But those are all outside the system. You can play with them. You can invest in them. But at some point, you'll need to convert back to dollars. Because the real system won't let you operate outside its rules for long. Let's say you're a crypto millionaire. You've got $10 million in Bitcoin. Can you buy a house with it? Maybe. But the title company, the insurance firm, the bank, the IRS, they all want to see that transaction in US dollars. Because if it's not on their terms, it doesn't exist. Here's a harsh truth: the dollar is not just a currency. It's a control mechanism. It tracks you, taxes you, labels you, decides whether your wealth is real or not. And if you challenge it, you'll hit regulatory walls. You'll face legal barriers. You'll be locked out of basic financial tools, loans, licenses, credit, housing. Let's take it a step further. What if you tried to create your own money? Let's say you're in a small town. Everyone agrees to use a local currency, call it river bucks. You print bills. You trade. You even get a few businesses on board. Great. Until the federal government finds out. Because now, you're breaking counterfeiting laws. Even if no one was tricked. Even if it was voluntary. Even if it worked. Why? Because only one institution has the legal authority to issue currency in the US, the Federal Reserve. Any other attempt is a threat to its monopoly. And this is where the invisible chains come into view. You can choose what to wear, what to eat, what to believe. But when it comes to money, you don't really have a choice. You're either in the system or out of society. Because society runs on money. And that money is mandated. The system protects itself not through obvious force, but through exclusion. If you don't use dollars, you're not just different, you're ineligible. Ineligible for a bank account. Ineligible for credit. Ineligible for a mortgage, a business loan, even a paycheck. And that's the genius of the design. You don't need to force people to comply, you just make it impossible for them to function without compliance. That's why governments crack down on alternative currencies. That's why crypto is regulated, tracked, and taxed. That's why your digital payment apps are tied directly to your legal identity and bank account. Because control over the currency means control over you. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. As the world moves toward central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, government-issued digital money, the control will become even tighter. Every transaction will be traceable. Every account will be programmable. You won't just be using money, you'll be living inside it. And stepping outside will be nearly impossible. So no, you can't opt out. Not really. Not without walking away from the infrastructure of modern life, utilities, internet, healthcare, housing, legal protection. That's the trade-off. And most people never question it. They're so used to the system, they don't even see the bars. But when you start to question the system, you realize just how deep the roots go. You see how money isn't just economic, it's political. You see how financial systems determine who has power, who gets left behind, and who never even gets to play the game. And most of all, you realize that freedom is not just about rights. It's about access. Access to the currency. Access to credit. Access to participate. Without dollars, you don't have access. And without access, you don't have power. ETs talk about the group most people think are winning the game, the middle class. They have homes. They drive cars. They go on vacations. Their kids go to college. They're not rich, but they're not poor either. To outsiders, the middle class looks comfortable. But comfort is not the same as freedom. Beneath the surface of that lifestyle lies a different story. One of quiet struggle, financial anxiety, and a lifetime of debt-fueled performance. Let's pull back the curtain. Take a look at the average American household. They have a mortgage, likely 30 years. They carry credit card debt, with 20% plus interest. They're paying off student loans, sometimes for decades. They lease or finance a car, because buying one outright is too expensive. They have little to no emergency savings. And many are one medical bill or job loss away from disaster. Does that sound like financial freedom? Or does it sound like servitude, dressed up as success? Here's the truth: the middle class is trapped in a debt cycle, packaged as the American dream. They're not living off wealth, they're living off leverage. Loans, lines of credit, deferred payments, future earnings traded in for present comfort. This isn't an accident. It's the result of a system built to function on consumer debt. The middle class isn't just participating in the economy, they are powering it. They're the ones taking out loans to buy homes, fueling the real estate market, racking up credit card purchases, fueling retail consumption, investing in 401(k)s and mutual funds, fueling stock market liquidity, sending kids to college, fueling the student loan industry. They are both the customers and the collateral. And here's the cruel twist: the more they strive to keep up, the deeper they sink into the trap. Because everything they're told to pursue, status, security, success, requires debt. Want to own a home? You'll need a mortgage. Want to build credit? You need to borrow. Want to be respected? You better look the part, buy the right clothes, drive the right car, live in the right neighborhood. It's not enough to survive. You have to signal success. And signaling costs money. So people borrow. They finance. They lease. They pay minimums. They postpone real freedom for the illusion of having made it. And meanwhile, the wealth, the real wealth, flows upward. The banks collect interest. The government collects taxes. Corporations collect profits. Investors collect dividends. And the middle class? They collect stress, fatigue, debt, and the constant pressure to keep going. This is why so many Americans live paycheck to paycheck, even those earning six figures. Because the system scales with you. As your income increases, so does the pressure to consume more. Make $50,000. That gets you an apartment. Make $150,000. Now you need a bigger house, a private school, 2 luxury vehicles. Debt doesn't go away, it just levels up. Even worse, financial literacy is often lacking. People don't understand compound interest, amortization, or market cycles. They trust their 401(k) is enough, or that Social Security will still be there. They assume their job is safe. Their health is permanent. Their debt is normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy. Let's be clear, this isn't about blaming individuals. It's about exposing the systemic design. A design that incentivizes spending over saving, consumption over production, compliance over questioning. We call it freedom. But it's really a treadmill. And the saddest part? The middle class are taught to see themselves as closer to the wealthy than to the poor. They see themselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires, not as overleveraged workers fueling a machine they don't control. This illusion keeps them loyal. Loyal to the companies that underpay them. Loyal to the brands that exploit them. Loyal to the politicians who smile in public and legislate against their interests in private. Because hope is powerful. And if you believe that someday you'll be rich, you're less likely to fight the system you hope to join. But here's the truth. Real wealth is not having stuff, it's having time, autonomy, and margin. Real freedom is not a bigger house, it's not needing a mortgage. Real power is not climbing the corporate ladder, it's owning the ladder. The middle class has been sold a dream. A beautiful one. But dreams don't pay off credit cards. They don't protect you in a crisis. And they certainly don't liberate you from a system designed to keep you just comfortable enough not to question it. So what do we do with this knowledge? We start by waking up. By questioning what we've been taught. By rethinking success, not as accumulation, but as liberation. Because until we change the definition of wealth, we'll keep chasing the illusion. We've journeyed from the fragile foundation of fiat money, through the world of debt, into the walls of control, and into the quiet struggle of the middle class. Now let's ask the hardest, most important question. Who really benefits from this system? Because if money is belief, if debt fuels creation, if opting out locks you out, and if the middle class is caught in a debt-powered illusion, then who is winning? Let's follow the flow of money, not how it's earned, but how it's accumulated. Start at the top. The people who don't just use the system, they own it. 1. The central banks. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve, aren't just economic institutions. They're the architects of the modern money game. They control the supply of money. They set interest rates. They decide when to inject trillions into the system or tighten the flow. They don't make money the way you do. They create it. They control liquidity. And liquidity isn't just cash, it's power. Every time the Fed cuts rates, lowers reserve requirements, or buys government bonds, the wealthiest benefit first. It's called the Cantillon effect. Money enters the economy through the financial sector and inflates asset prices before wages or prices adjust. So those with assets, stocks, real estate, equity, get richer. While everyone else watches their dollars lose purchasing power. This isn't conspiracy. It's mechanics. 2. The financial elite. Next up, the asset holders. The 1%. The billionaires. The hedge funds, investment banks, and private equity firms. These aren't people who work for money. They own things. They own businesses, land, rental properties, patents, shares in companies. They make money while they sleep. And guess what? They also own debt. While the middle class is paying interest, the wealthy are collecting it. They lend to governments through bonds. To businesses through financing. To you through mortgages, student loans, and credit cards. They're not just players. They're the house. And in this casino, the house always wins. Because the more the system relies on debt, the more passive income flows to those who issue it. 3. Corporations and politicians. This system doesn't run on money alone. It runs on policy, crafted by those who benefit from it. Multinational corporations leverage the monetary system to expand, extract, and scale. They borrow cheap. They lobby hard. They receive bailouts. And in return, they shape laws, regulations, and trade agreements that protect their dominance. Meanwhile, politicians, many of whom are funded by these same corporations, ensure the illusion stays intact. They talk about the middle class. They promise reform. But rarely do they question the structure itself. Because challenging the system means threatening their own power. And so the cycle continues. But what if the system wasn't broken? What if it was doing exactly what it was designed to do? To centralize wealth. To reward those closest to the spigot. To maintain a working class that fuels consumption without ever accumulating real ownership. This may sound bleak. But awareness is the first step to change. Let's recap what we've uncovered in this series. Money is a belief system, not a substance. Since 1971, it has been backed by trust, not gold. Every dollar is born out of debt, not value. The system is enforced by exclusion, not violence. The middle class is trapped in a cycle of borrow and spend. And the winners are those who issue, control, and collect on that debt. So where does that leave us? What can you do? Here are a few thoughts, not solutions, but starting points. Build real assets. Start accumulating things that hold value, even when the system shifts: skills, land, equity, businesses, precious metals, intellectual property. These are not just income sources, they're forms of independence. Understand the game. Financial literacy isn't just a tool, it's a shield. The more you understand interest, debt, investing, and market cycles, the harder it is for the system to use your ignorance against you. Reduce fragility. The less debt you carry, the less you're owned. The more emergency savings you build, the less fear controls you. The fewer liabilities you rely on, the more flexible your life becomes. Build community. This system thrives on isolation and individualism. But resilience comes from networks. From people who trade skills, share resources, and question the narrative together. And most importantly, question the dream. Don't just ask how to get ahead. Ask whether the path is even worth following. Don't just chase what everyone else wants. Ask why they want it. Freedom isn't about playing the game better. It's about deciding whether the game should exist at all. Because the truth is, we invented this system. And we can reinvent it. Not overnight. Not easily. But one conversation, one decision, one awakening at a time. You are not just a consumer. Not just a worker. Not just a debtor. You are a human being, with the power to question, to create, to imagine something better. Something more honest. More equitable. More human.